You still clinging to those fossil pens, Trevor called, across the polished oak conference table, his smirk stretching like he'd just landed the joke of the century. A few nervous chuckles floated around the room. The rest stared down at the Q2 forecast they'd already seen twice this week. I didn't laugh. I didn't even blink. My hand stayed on my leather-bound compliance binder, one I'd been updating by hand for 19 years. Trevor, our freshly minted VP of Operations, all of 34 and full of swagger, leaned back like he was royalty atop other people's work. "We're not in the Stone Age anymore, people. Time to digitize, streamline, automate." He tapped his tablet like it was a magic wand. "No offense, Diane, but your scribbles belong in a museum." Yes, he air-quoted scribbles. Here's where I could have reminded him how those so-called scribbles once prevented an 8-figure lawsuit from a Tokyo partner. But I'd learned in rooms like this silence stings more. So I smiled, polite, empty, and stood. I slid the binder closed. Worn leather faded tab dividers, a faint ink smear from a chaotic Thursday back in 2011. On its spine, a single label in block letters, "Do not remove." Trevor didn't ask what was inside. He just watched as I carried it steady and deliberate down to the archive room. Top shelf, locked cabinet, keycard access only. I placed it there the way a minister might set down scripture. Then I went upstairs, cleared my desk, and walked out before lunch. No HR exit interview, no farewell cake, not even a cardboard box. Everything worth keeping was already shelved. That afternoon, Trevor's memo hit the company Slack. "Today, we say goodbye to a modernized future. Let's give Diane a warm round of applause for her years of service." Applause. He actually used the word. By the end of the day, my system access was cut, my parking space reassigned, and my name erased from the compliance knowledge base. 19 years reduced to a footnote in a modernization announcement. But I'd already made sure the most valuable thing I'd ever built was safe and exactly where it needed to be. Just like that, 19 years disappeared under a cloud of buzzword-heavy nonsense. That night, I got a single message from Lauren, a junior analyst I'd coached through her first compliance audit. "Trevor says your binders were redundant. Just thought you should know." I didn't reply, not because I didn't care, but because I already knew. Trevor thought redundancy was a flaw. He hadn't learned that in compliance, redundancy is another word for insurance. So I poured myself a bourbon, lit the citronella candle on my porch, and opened a fresh notebook. Page 1 in bold red ink, legacy oversight, watch list. 3 companies, 3 markets, 3 ticking clocks. Let him strip the soul out of this place. Let him drag and drop his way into trouble. My warning was already shelved where it needed to be. The next morning, a company-wide email hit inboxes, subject Operational Optimization Phase 2. Trevor's words dressed it up like spring cleaning a break room, but he was gutting decades of institutional memory. All non-digitized documentation poses a security and compliance liability. Effective immediately, physical archives will be reviewed and removed. All departments must report analog materials by 500 Saturn p.m. Friday. No signature, no thank you, just cold deletion. The compliance floor turned into a triage zone. Admins rolled out bins. Teams frantically scanned files, tossing anything older than 2010. Someone waved around a floppy disk like it was treasure from the Titanic. Another taped an old thermal receipt to his monitor for laughs until legal started calling. Trevor had fired the memory but left the machine running. No one knew how to operate it. In the chaos, an intern named Kayla got sent to inventory the archives. Bright-eyed, nervous, probably still had her business ethics syllabus in her tote bag. She scanned each shelf with a barcode app Trevor swore was faster than cross-checking. Then she saw it. Top shelf. Black leather. Brass corners worn smooth. A label in block letters, "Do not remove." Her hand hovered on the spine, then pulled back. She didn't log it. She didn't touch it. Some labels feel less like suggestions and more like warnings. She didn't touch it. Later, when Trevor asked if the archives were fully processed, she lied and said yes. Something about that "do not remove" label hadn't felt like a suggestion. It felt like a polite threat. Meanwhile, I got an email from Evan in Junior Legal Sharp Kid. Too many browser tabs open and a habit of whispering when nervous. Diane, sorry to bother you. Quick question. They're modifying contract clauses without checking legacy protocols, right? That's bad. I stared at it for a full minute, jaw tight. It wasn't the question that bothered me. It was the quick question tone, like he was asking about coffee orders instead of a procedural landmine Trevor had armed. They weren't reviewing the old protocols. They weren't even looking. We were erasing the very map that showed where the cliffs were. I didn't respond. Not yet. That night, I pulled out my porch notebook, the one marked after Trevor's iPad sermon. Fresh bourbon bowl of pistachios and a new heading, active blind spots. 3 high-risk clients, all with non-standard clauses I'd flagged years ago when political shifts tried to sneak in dangerous audit terms. One Madrid-based client had a red clause that triggered automatic penalties if blanket language was applied during financial volatility. We'd danced around that minefield for years like surgeons beside a live bomb. Now Trevor was doing jumping jacks on top of it. I noted their review cycles, cross-checked fiscal years, and underlined the next key date, Friday, 4:00 p.m. CET, 3 days away. If Trevor pushed through a standard clause package without legacy compliance checks, they'd breach. Not maybe. Not possibly. Guaranteed. If you want to see exactly what happened when the next storm hit and how I handled it, make sure you subscribe now so you're there when the story continues. I didn't warn them. Not out of spite, but because I'd already built the fire escape, marked it, circled it in red ink. They were the ones boarding it shut. Thursday 9:00 a.m. sharp, the all-hands began with pounding EDM and a pre-roll animation that looked like it cost more than my severance. On-screen leaner, faster, smarter. Each word animated like it was selling cryptocurrency. Then Trevor strolled out, no tie polished shoes, ego filling the room. The branding glowed behind him, slick sanitized, and I knew the countdown had begun. Team Trevor beamed hands spread like a game show host. Today marks a turning point. The camera panned over the crowd of department heads, interns, and middle managers, some clapping out of habit, others out of fear. I spotted familiar faces. Poor Lauren still forcing a smile like she wasn't being fed into a compliance grinder. "You've removed the bottlenecks," Trevor announced. "No more red tape. No more handwritten delays. No more legacy clutter clogging up our momentum." On screen, a cartoon man labeled "Old System" was being launched into space by a rocket named Automation. Trevor grinned wider. "This morning, I greenlit a multinational transfer deal with our European partners. Without the 2-week compliance drag, done in under 48 hours. The audience clapped like he'd just cured cancer. From my porch, I sat in my old rocking chair, a paper bowl of dry cat food on one thigh and a sunburned tabby named Rufus on the other. Rufus purred. I did not. At the bottom ticker of the live stream, I recognized the client name, Grupo Intesa. My jaw tightened. Rufus paused his chewing, sensing the change in air pressure. I took a slow sip of bourbon. "Let's see how you handle Madrid," I muttered. His shiny win had skipped legacy review entirely. If he'd looked at my notes, he'd know Grupo Intesa had a buried clause, 7.3 tied to volatile currency margins. Triggering it meant breach penalties, asset freezes, and automatic audit escalation. Trevor didn't know that. He thought clients were just spreadsheets. History was noise. My binders were cute. Back on stream, he rapped with, "We're not just modernizing, we're future-proofing." Future-proofing. Lord help us. Then came a blooper reel of old System woes actors tripping over filing cabinets and shaking fists at printers. Laughter rippled through the office like a funeral for common sense. But beneath the synthetic cheer, I saw cracks. Lauren didn't laugh. Evan, the junior lawyer, stared at the floor. Kayla, the intern, blinked every time archive was mentioned. The air wasn't confident, it was caffeinated and cornered. It was caffeine-fueled and cornered. Trevor was already celebrating a touchdown with his back to the field. That afternoon, Slack lit up with emojis and champagne gifts. Trevor even posted a selfie in his office. Legacy is dead. Long live the future. By nightfall, Grupo Intessa's automated systems had flagged the language in his shiny new contract. Subtle, just a passive alert to their risk office, clause 7.3. Trigger detected. Escalation pending. No one at Trevor's level would notice until it screamed. I'd seen it coming 3 days earlier. So I poured another bourbon-scratched Rufus behind the ears and wrote a fresh header in my notebook: Thursday ignition. Tomorrow, fallout. Friday, 6:42 p.m. The office was half empty, fully drunk on Trevor's Kool-Aid. He stood in the war room, fingered jabbing the air like a boy playing CEO in front of a mirror. Run it, he said. We're green across the board. The dashboard glowed perfect check marks. Of course it looked good. He'd designed the metrics after gutting the actual standards. The deal, a $72 million cross-border transfer across 5 markets, meant to exploit a euro to dollar swing. On paper, genius. In reality, a blindfolded base jump, default templates, no red flag clauses, no manual checks, no Diane. I wasn't watching live, I didn't need to. I had it in red ink, Friday execution window. Grupo Intesa, breach probable. I knew the clause by heart. Any rapid multi-currency shift without custom language would trigger a freeze, built to protect them from bad faith trading. And Trevor had just jumped straight into it. Saturday, 9:13 a.m. My burner email pinged, payment halt initiated. Clause 7.3 breach. Immediate audit freeze. Per Section C. No emojis, no drama. Just legalese silence. By noon, payment confirmations failed in Madrid. The $72 million sat in escrow purgatory. Trevor, of course, thought it was a banking delay. He told finance to circle back Monday. Saturday night, 8:52 p.m. Another ping, this time from a Swiss account tied to our second oldest legacy partner, Baring plus Coke AG. They'd flagged duplicated risk language in a contract Trevor had personally signed, language that should have been retired in 2017. Action freeze initiated. Internal legal pending escalation. By Sunday morning, the third domino fell: Vandersloot Holdings in Rotterdam. I didn't even open the email. The subject line said enough non-compliant language detected. Suspension enacted. 3 red flags. 3 legacy clients. 3 ghosts. Trevor thought he'd erased by deleting paper. At 3:12 p.m. Sunday, my phone buzzed. Not a text, not an email, a voicemail. From a number I knew immediately. Ron Whitaker, former CFO. I hadn't spoken to him since the 2018 company retreat, where he'd confused EBITDA and net margin after too much tequila. His voice now was slower, less smug. Diane, he said, static humming between words. I'm just gonna ask, did you know this would happen? Paper shuffled in the background. Someone coughed. Boardroom acoustics. I'm looking at clause references in your handwriting right now, he said. And this isn't even hidden. It's labeled. Red ink. Page 1. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew the next call wouldn't be a question, it would be a request. I glanced at my backyard. The citronella candle was a pool of wax. Rufus pawed at a dead moth. In my notebook beneath Friday execution window, I drew a line and wrote, Saturday trigger pulled. Sunday contagion. They'd tugged the wrong thread. Now the whole suit was coming apart. Monday hit like a body bag. 7:14 a.m., the boardroom filled early, lights dim, coffee untouched. Suits slouched in ties, crooked eyes bloodshot from a weekend of spreadsheets, legal threats, and we need to talk emails from billion-dollar clients. The mood, clinical panic. The kind where no one screams because screaming would confirm the building's already on fire. 40 million, Patel said flatly. That's what we've lost in active contract value since Friday night. No one breathed. Grupo Intesa frozen. Bearing plus Coke, suspended. Vandersloot gone dark and already talking to competitors. Trevor sat too close to the whiteboard like a school kid about to be scolded. He swallowed hard, the sound sharp in the quiet room. His hair looked less polished now, his confidence even less so. I was under the impression those clients were cleared through the new risk filters, he stammered. We ran the protocols. The dashboards were green. Patel raised a hand, the universal stop talking. We ran your protocols, Trevor. They didn't account for clause exceptions dating back to 2014. Langston, the CEO, leaned forward at last. His voice was calm and sharp, the kind people remember at funerals. Those clients were flagged in our legacy compliance notes. The air shifted. The HVAC clicked on. No one spoke. Trevor blinked rapidly. Those notes were, we transitioned to the new system in Q2. The legacy materials were deemed obsolete. Langston didn't blink. Obsolete or inconvenient? Then from the corner, a voice. The binder. It was Kayla, the intern in the room, only because her manager had turned her onboarding into a shadow session. She hadn't planned to speak, but the words slipped out. I saw it last month in the archive room. Label said do not remove, black leather, top shelf. All eyes turned to her, even Trevor. Langston looked to Patel. Do we still have access to that room? Patel nodded. Physical keycard entry. Archives. Langston stood. Get it. Trevor opened his mouth, then closed it again. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the realization that the ghost he'd tried to erase wasn't gone. Her name, my name, hadn't been spoken aloud, but it was everywhere in that room, haunting like red ink bleeding through paper. And for the first time since I left, my absence was louder than Trevor's excuses. Langston left the room without a word. Behind him, Trevor sat frozen, no dashboard buzzwords, no lean initiative slogans, just the weight of $40 million in preventable losses and a binder he'd once mocked before tossing out the woman who wrote it. Kayla sank into her chair, wishing she could disappear. Outside that boardroom in a cabinet nearly gutted for scrap, the binder sat under harsh fluorescent light. Its spine still bore the warning in thick black Sharpie, do not remove. Nobody laughed anymore. The archive room door hissed open, slow and reluctant, as if even the building knew what was coming. Langston stepped in alone. No assistants, no cameras, no Slack status saying stepping away. Just the CEO of a $900 million company walking into the graveyard of what he'd let be discarded. The light flickered once, then steadied. Metal shelves lined the walls like silent jurors. Folders backup drives a few dusty hard hats. And then black leather brass corners, a spine label that hadn't faded. Do not remove. Langston didn't hesitate. He slid it free like it might detonate. The weight, literal and figurative, pulled at his wrist. He carried it back to the boardroom like a priest returning with sacred text. The moment he re-entered the room went still. Trevor sat straighter, fingers tapping a nervous rhythm. Langston opened to page 1. Red flag clients, non-standard protocols and trigger clauses. Headers typed subsections in neat, consistent script. Names highlighted in amber: Grupo Intesa, Madrid. Bearing Plus, Coke AG, Zurich. Vandersloot Holdings, Rotterdam. Each section detailed risk clauses, flagged keywords, contact preferences, cultural notes, mitigation strategies, the scribbles Trevor had once called outdated. Langston flipped to Madrid. A neon sticky note angled across the page. Do not use blanket clause 7. 3. Breach risk. Escalate before proceeding. Below, circled in red ink, a hand-drawn triangle with 3 letters: ESQ, my shorthand for escalation protocol. Patel leaned forward, pale. That note predates the new system by 3 years. Trevor cleared his throat. It's not that we didn't value the legacy materials. It was just no official transition workflow to cross-reference, Trevor muttered. Langston raised a hand, sharp final. Stop. You had this information, he said slowly. It was here. You replaced it with untested automation, rushed a foreign deal, and deleted the only warning system we had. Trevor tried, but the dashboards get out. Langston's tone was calm. No yelling, no theatrics, just a verdict. Trevor looked around as if someone might save him, but all he saw were executives staring at the table, interns looking stunned, and a binder that had gutted him with a single page. He stood on shaky legs and left without a word. Langston sat back, eyeing the binder like it was radioactive. Patel, find out what else is in here. Patel nodded, pulling it toward him like it was a defibrillator for the company's last shred of reputation. In the corner, someone whispered, "She wrote all of that by hand." No one replied, but they all knew who she was. I hadn't been gone long, but my absence had just cashed out $40 million in regret, and they'd only read one page. Tuesday, 7, 6 a.m. My phone lit up, still dusted with cat hair from Rufus knocking it off the nightstand. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hello?" A tight, practiced female voice replied. "Diane, this is Madison, the CEO's assistant. Mr. Langston would like to meet with you." Immediately. He asked me to say it exactly like that. I didn't ask why or how he got my number. I simply said I'll be there in an hour. No suit. I wore the same navy cardigan I'd worn during quarterly audits, ink stains still on the sleeve from years of high-pressure meetings. If ghosts were going to watch, I'd dress for the funeral they started. When I walked through the lobby, heads turned. Some whispered. A man near reception nudged a coworker and murmured, "That's her." They didn't say my name. They didn't need to. Madison was waiting at the elevator, hands clasped like she was bracing for impact. No small talk. Madison just pressed the button for the 19th floor, hands clasped like she was praying with her knuckles. As we stepped off, I saw Patel in the hallway holding my binder as if it were radioactive. He started to speak, then just nodded. That was enough. Langston's office door stood open. "Diane," he said, motioning to the chair across from him. No desk between us, just a round table, 2 chairs, and a silver thermos of coffee already poured into 2 mugs. A sticky note on the handle read, "No cream. 2 sugars." He'd remembered. I sat. He studied me for a long moment. "I should have read it," he said at last. "When you left the binder. Page 1 was right there." I didn't blink. "You weren't supposed to." His head tilted. "It was written for him," I said. "Trevor. That's what made it dangerous. I left it so he'd either read it or ignore it. Both had consequences." Langston nodded slowly, unsure if it was prophecy or confession. "I didn't bring you here for theatrics," he said. "I'm asking what it will take to fix this." I leaned back, crossing my legs, notebook already in hand. No laptop, no PowerPoint, just pen and paper, the tools they'd mocked a month ago. 60 days, I said. His brow lifted. To do what? To stabilize compliance, rebuild hybrid systems, manual cross-checks on all legacy clients, restore archive procedures, retrain legal on trigger clauses, and install red flag audits in finance before the next deal cycle. He stared. "No desk," I added. "No direct reports. I'm not here to babysit interns. I'm here to repair a system, not raise another Trevor." Silence. Then title. I shrugged. "You pick. Just spell my name right." "You have it," he said. I stood. Madison was at the door. Her eyes flicked to the binder in my hand, then back up, nervous now. Patel passed in the hallway, whispering, "Everyone's talking about the sticky note. Madrid, they can't believe you flagged it years ago." I didn't slow. They'll believe more by Friday. In the elevator's mirrored panel, I caught my own reflection, steady, unshaken. Hair tied back. No makeup. Binder under one arm. For the first time in weeks, no tremor in my hand. I wasn't back, I was in charge. The memo dropped Wednesday at 8:01 a.m. No fanfare, no email blast. Just a quiet Slack post and that's our company announcements wedged between a keyboard order reminder and a recycled motivational quote from Monday morale slides. Effective immediately, Trevor H. will be reassigned to a strategic advisory role focused on non-core expansion initiatives. We thank him for his contributions and look forward to leveraging his expertise in new contexts. Reassigned corporate for go sit in the corner and think about what you've done. It didn't say demoted, but everyone knew. His badge now opened floor 7 between procurement overflow and the HVAC supply closet. His strategic role had no team, no budget, no meetings. Rumor was, his only project was advising on how not to handle compliance. 10 minutes later, a second memo. Please welcome back Diane Harper as Special Executive Advisor to the CEO. Diane will oversee compliance restructuring, legacy systems integrity, and critical risk filtration. No emojis, no flair, just facts and a verdict. I didn't make a speech or post a photo. I just showed up. 9 o'clock sharp boardroom binder in hand. Same red ink. Same sticky notes. Same silent, I told you so. When I walked in, no one laughed. No dinosaur handwriting jokes. No when are we going fully digital questions. The same people who once called my notes redundant now leaned forward like school kids every time I turned a page. First meeting back, I slid a hand-annotated packet across the table line by line clause notes for every legacy client still in backlog. Half the room looked stunned, the other half visibly relieved. For the first time in weeks, someone had answers not generated by a dashboard. My first act was immediate hybrid compliance reinstated. All critical deals now required dual-path review, digital filters, and manual cross-checks. Not optional. Not legacy courtesy. Mandatory. Legal got a new clause library, 1 digital, 1 analog. Hard copies lived in locked floor cabinets, tracked and audited. Anyone accessing risk-flagged clients had to read both. ET complained it was inefficient. I reminded them losing $40 million in a weekend was more inefficient. That ended the discussion. Finance didn't complain at all. They'd been living in the aftermath and were relieved to see me walk in holding a fire extinguisher. Patel stopped by my office to say thank you, looking like a man handed a parachute mid-free fall. Langston didn't micromanage anymore. He'd learned the hard way that trusting the wrong person to automate judgment was like letting a vending machine perform surgery. He gave me room. I filled it. I only saw Trevor once in the elevator lobby. He stood there tight-lipped, clutching a cardboard box with his name scrawled on the side. I didn't smile. Didn't smirk. Just met his eyes for a beat longer than necessary. He looked away first. Later, Kayla came to my office with onboarding forms asking if I wanted my internal bio updated. I took a red pen, crossed out retired, April, and wrote reinstated on her terms. The hallway outside my door stayed unusually quiet that week. People walked softer, spoke lower, like they were afraid of waking something they hadn't respected the first time. In every meeting, audit, or strategy session, I carried the binder. No one laughed. At 6:44 a.m. on a gray Tuesday, the internal feed posted one simple headline: Resignation, Trevor H. Strategic Advisor. No spin, no quote, no farewell message, just a timestamp and a sentence. He was gone. No thank you for your service. And that silence. That was the applause. A few smirks flickered across Slack buried under harmless gifs, but no one said his name out loud anymore. Trevor had become something between a cautionary tale and a case study whispered over lunch like a ghost in polished shoes. His resignation barely made ripples. But the summit, that would make waves. Langston, once a believer in efficiency over experience, skipped the growth charts and platform slides this time. Instead, he told a story. No names, no finger-pointing, A quiet parable about how companies sometimes confuse motion for progress, how there was a time we thought analog was obsolete, that speed mattered more than memory. New always meant better. He let the silence stretch. Then he said we found a binder on a shelf. Page 1 contained everything they'd forgotten, not because it was lost, but because no one asked where it was filed. The room fell still. A pen clicked nervously. Langston's smile was small. Sometimes he said the most modern solution is listening before deleting. The applause was real this time. When it faded, I walked forward, slow, steady binder in hand. Not the old one. This one was clean matte gray, my handwriting still sharp after all these years. Langston took it without a word, opening to the first page. The header read, "What We Forgot to Respect." He looked up, not at the crowd, but at me. I gave him one nod, then turned and walked off stage. No speech. No curtain call. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about restoration. As I left, 100 executives sat in silence, their eyes locked on the binder in Langston's hands. To them, it was both relic and roadmap. They'd never know how many sticky notes it held, or how many red flags were quietly tucked into the margins. But one thing had changed for good: no one would dare throw them out again. You're the real stars of the corporate jungle. I've told you my story, every quiet decision, every moment I chose patience over shouting, and every time I let arrogance collapse under its own weight. But now I want to hear from you. What would you have done in my shoes? Would you have warned them or let them learn the hard way? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all, and I want to know if you think I made the right calls. If my story resonated, give it a like, share it, and subscribe, so you don't miss the next time experience triumphs over ego. The more you engage, the more I can keep telling stories that corporate America would rather sweep under the rug. And here's my advice, not just for work, but for life. Never underestimate the quiet power of preparation. The skills you've built over years aren't outdated, they're irreplaceable. Document them. Protect them. And when someone tries to erase your value, remember, walking away with your dignity and your knowledge intact can be the most devastating victory of all. You don't have to fight loud to win. Sometimes, you just have to know exactly where the exits are.